Hello everyone and welcome to Junior Church. Today we will be talking about the consequences of not listening to God. Does anybody know what that word means? A consequence is a result of something you've done. So for example, you might go to school and be super good. You might put your hand up when it's your turn to speak. You might have done all your homework, or maybe you keep your desk nice and tidy. As a consequence for being good, the teacher might give you an award or a certificate. But what about when you misbehave in class? What about when you distract your classmates, or you shout out the answers, or maybe you don't do your homework? What do you think might happen? You might get sent out of the classroom, or maybe the teacher makes you sit next to them in class so you don't distract people. That's a result of not being very good. That's a consequence of misbehaving. And today we will be talking about a king who did not listen to God and the results of not listening to God. So do you remember there was a king and he slayed the giant that was called Goliath, and he became king. His name was King David, that's right, and he wrote lots of songs and poems and prayers in the book of Psalm. Do you remember when we learnt about that a few weeks ago? And then he had a son called King Solomon, that's right. And King Solomon was a wise man, and God gave him really important instructions to build this magnificent big temple. The temple's walls were even made of gold. Can you imagine that? And do you remember God telling King Solomon that he would bless him because he listened to God? But if he stopped listening to God, and if he started worshipping gods that were not real, that God would stop blessing him. And today we will be looking at King Solomon and what happened when he stopped listening to God. And the story goes like this. King Solomon had many wives who did not worship God but worshipped their own gods. They wanted Solomon to worship with them, and so he ignored God and started worshipping false gods. He even built a special place where his wives could worship. God was angry and sad that Solomon had stopped following him. Solomon had broken a promise to God, so God decided to split the kingdom into two, giving only a small piece of it to Solomon's son. He would leave the piece because God had made a promise to David that he would not break. God sent a prophet to see a man called Jeroboam. The prophet ripped his cloak into 12 pieces and gave Jeroboam 10 pieces because Jeroboam would be the king of 10 out of 12 tribes. When Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. Rehoboam had a difficult decision to make, so he asked for advice. He asked his dad's advisors and he asked his own mates. His dad's advisors gave him good advice, but his friends gave him bad advice. Do you know what Rehoboam did? He did what his friends said, and he was mean to the people. Then because he was mean to them, the people would not follow him. They wanted Jeroboam to be their king, so Rehoboam ended up with only part of the kingdom, whereas Jeroboam was king out of 12 tribes. So do you see how because they stopped listening to God, God did not bless them? You see, King Solomon stopped worshipping God, so God took away some of the land. And then when King Solomon's son Rehoboam became king, he listened to bad advice, and because of that, God did not bless him and the people didn't want to make him king. Now see, it's important for us to listen to God. Do you know how we can listen to God? We can pray to him, and when he speaks to us, we listen. We could come to Junior Church and listen to the stories. We can listen to our moms and dads teaching us about God. And when we listen, we have to make sure that we follow God's instructions. And when we follow him, he blesses us. Amen? Amen. I hope you all have a lovely day.